Extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Dorian barreling towards Abaco Island as well as Grand Bahama Island in the Bahamas. I'm Mike Naso with this morning update on our very powerful Category 4 hurricane, Severe Hurricane Dorian. Here's the latest as of 5 a.m. Eastern Time from the National Hurricane Center, September 1st, 2019. Hurricane Dorian was at 26.4 north, 76.0 west. And winds were 150 miles per hour. That is about as high as you can get on the Category 4 scale with much higher gusts. It's been moving straight west at 7 or 8 miles an hour. That pressure very low at 934 millibars. By comparison, Michael last year was a Category 5 at 919 millibars, and Andrew was at 922. So when you're getting down 935 or lower, you're getting into historic hurricane territory. Now, the forecast from the Hurricane Center has shifted ever so slightly west because some of the models have shifted a little bit closer to the Florida coast this morning. And even though it's still expected right now to avoid landfall, it is going to be so close that you really have to be listening to emergency officials. The forecast has Dorian just slowly moving over the next 48 hours straight over Abaco Island and Grand Bahama Island as an extremely powerful Category 4 storm, and then starting to feel the weakness in the high pressure to the north. That Bermuda high from the troughiness moving off the east coast is going to erode the ridge and allow Dorian to turn northwest and then north and then northeast. Whether or not that's making landfall or staying offshore or a landfall in Georgia up to North Carolina, we just can't say right now, but we do have those tropical storm warnings up for the Florida East Coast. Hurricane warnings, of course, for the Northwest Bahamas, Abaco Island, Grand Bahama Island. You guys are under the gun, as this is a very, very serious storm. There's the infrared satellite imagery, and boy, when the visibles come out in a couple of hours, this is just going to be insane. Hurricane hunters have been zigzagging all around it, dropping drop sondes, getting wind observations, trying to figure out how strong is the high pressure to the north, allowing this thing to go further and further west. You can see that it's been moving pretty much straight to the west since the beginning of this loop. From here all the way to here is just barely maybe to the north of due west. And, of course, the more it moves west, the higher the likelihood we could see a serious impact along the Florida East Coast, to say nothing of Abaco Island and Grand Bahama Island, which are just squarely in the path. Tropical storm force winds are going to begin pretty much right about now on Abaco Island, and those will quickly escalate to hurricane force, and I'd say over the next 12 hours they are in for potentially a historic hurricane on Abaco Island there, possibly even worse than Floyd was 20 years ago this month. You can see it obviously a donut, very powerful Category 4 hurricane, 150 miles per hour, and there's the Florida coast, and there is the eye of our dangerous Dorian. The Canadian model, you can see the 0Z run does bring Dorian inland into the east coast of Florida right there, and then takes it back offshore, scraping the Carolinas. A lot of heavy rainfall is possible, especially if Dorian expands in size. So far, it's been a pretty tight donut, and that is good news as far as rainfall, but this slowdown, the flood threat will persist in land areas where that rain shield goes, so we're going to be watching it. It'll probably be entering radar range of Florida in the next 12 to 24 hours. It's already in the range of the radar of the Bahamas, and I'll show you that in a second. But you can see the Canadian does bring it inland, and the GFS does make landfall right in areas of, say, Cape Fear, Wilmington, North Carolina by about, say, Friday. So this is a very slow-moving storm over the Bahamas and then right up north, and then the GFS coming in with a landfall. So we could still see a landfall even if it does not make landfall in Florida. It could make landfall in the Carolinas like Floyd did back in 1999. So there's still a lot of uncertainty in the track, and I understand it's very frustrating. It's like, this thing's right there. How do you not know where it's going to go? Believe me, folks, this is a tough hurricane to track. Probably one of the tougher ones I've ever tracked, certainly since I started doing these videos back in 2005. The H-Wharf model brings it inland near Cape Canaveral, maybe a little to the north, as a Category 2 or 3 hurricane after just pummeling the Bahamas, slowing down, and then it goes over Georgia and South Carolina. And again, if it takes this track based on the H-Wharf model, it's still over the Carolinas on Friday, and it's Sunday morning. I mean, this is a long duration event, and that would be prolific rainfall should that take place. 20 years ago this month, Hurricane Floyd. Floyd was a strong Category 4, about the same strength as Dorian, and it was much larger, though, and it moved straight west on September 13th and 14th of 1999, and it got all the way to about little before where Dorian is, actually, and it started to make that northwest turn and went over areas of Andros Island as a Category 4 hurricane, devastating the island, Elbow Key, those areas, and then it went to the northwest, the north, weakened to a strong Category 2 and made landfall near Cape Fear, and then went on up the east coast. But the rainfall was horrible. We had flooding in the Tar River. Remember all those documentaries on the Weather Channel back in the early 2000s about all the people who had to be saved by the Coast Guard when the Tar River flooded, and it was just horrific. So even though Floyd was a monster out here and it was much weaker to the north, it still devastated and caused $6 billion in damage, which at the time, 20 years ago, made it the third costliest hurricane. Now, of course, it's way down the list with the increase in inflation and property values during all these hurricanes we've had. Nevertheless, Floyd, I was 11 years old, and almost 11 years old when that happened, and that was 20 years ago. So that does come to mind when we look at Dorian's potential track, although right now the forecast has Dorian moving much, much closer to the coastline of Florida, which is concerning. Here's the radar out of the Bahamas. Look at that powerful eye moving into range. There's Marsh Harbor on the Abaco Islands there, Elbow Key right there, Elbow Cay, and there's Freeport in Grand Bahama Island, and of course there's Palm Beach, Boca Raton, the highly populated east coast of Florida, and Dorian is moving straight to the west right now, and I haven't seen any deviation from that, so it looks like Marsh Harbor in areas of Abaco Island are going to get pummeled. Andros is to the south here, by the way, and this area here is obviously going to get a lot of impacts, but nothing like the devastating Category 4 conditions we are likely to see on areas of Abaco Island and Grand Bahama Island. Of course, if you're in Palm Beach this morning waking up, you're within just a couple hundred miles of a devastating hurricane. So if it does turn and you had to evacuate and prepare, don't be angry that it missed you. Be thankful that it did, if it does. Again, you can see Marsh Harbor right there, Great Abaco Island. It's a beautiful, beautiful paradise. But really, when they got hit by Floyd, I saw a documentary where a man said, on Elbow Cay and the Hope Town area, Hope Town Lighthouse, the only thing that is past that to the east is Africa, which is true. It's all ocean, and it is all Dorian. And that is obviously very, very concerning, as when you look at the satellite imagery of this hurricane, we are dealing with just a beast beyond what they have ever experienced. Certainly with Hurricane Floyd back in '99, Floyd was actually 140, I believe, when it came through areas of Abaco Island. This is 150, so this is stronger than Floyd was, and it's headed right towards it. So 20 years, the price price you pay for living in paradise, I guess. A very, very dangerous hurricane. Category 4, nothing to mess around with. We'll be back with frequent coverage on IPR 365's YouTube page over the next couple of days as we watch Dorian continue to move straight to the west right now towards Abaco Island, Grand Bahama Island, and then a very slow turn somewhere off the east coast of Florida, but it's just too close to call right now. I'm Mike Naso, and I will talk to you guys later with more on Dangerous Dorian.